Hey everybody, so we're here. We have Bonin joining in a minute. Wanted to give you guys some prefix on Bonin. He is an amazing rockstar entrepreneur. He used to be the CMO at Mondelez for a long time. He's himself an investor in many small businesses around the country. He runs Cleveland Hustles. He is hustling himself. He'll be here in Miami pretty soon, a couple of weeks. His new event called Brand New. And here he is right now, coming on live with us right now. So Bonin, say hi to all the listeners at the new Tropic.
Hey everybody, sorry about the little technical delays on our side, but I'm excited to be here, and it's a great honor to have a chance to talk to you guys and to talk to you, Chris.
Oh, the same here. And I think you know this, but Miami, we have a thing called Cuban time, which we're always on. So you're never late. It's when you get there.
Fair enough. Love it.
Awesome. So give everyone a little insight into your background, but I think everyone here obviously are huge LeBron fans. Me personally, and I would love to know, how does one meet LeBron James and become his business partner?
By looking up. It's quite tall. No, the great thing is the shot on the Cleveland Hustles almost makes us look the same height. The difference is he's actually sitting down. So I actually met, originally I met his business team. So the head of his business, Maverick Carter, who is a really good friend now, but we met maybe almost 5 years ago when we were working on a project together, and then consequently have worked on a number of things. What was great was that for Cleveland Hustles, they actually called me and said, hey, we want to create a model for revitalizing neighborhoods across the country, starting, of course, with Cleveland. And we came up with this model, and the whole idea is we take local investors that are willing to invest their money to build storefronts, because at the end of the day, it's storefronts that actually revitalize neighborhoods. And we found local entrepreneurs that have businesses that can build storefronts. We did an open call in Cleveland. We had a number of businesses submit. From there, we chose 20, and then each investor chose 2 businesses. And the first 4 episodes of the show, you watch the 2 businesses vie for the investors' investment by creating pop-ups. So one investor, one show, and 2 businesses. And then the back 4, you watch us bring them to life. But what happened was they said, hey, you know what, Bonin, we want you to come and audition in December, which, by the way, is cold in Cleveland. Just FYI, not as cold as February, which is when we started shooting, which is another FYI. But they said, we want you to audition to be an investor. So I went. They said, you know what, we don't want you to be an investor. They said, actually, we want you to host the show. So I said, wow, okay. So we set out to kind of really create this model that could reinvent cities across the country. And I'll tell you, it's become a personal passion of mine, and it was the most cathartic experience that I've had those 8 months of bringing this thing to life, because what I learned was the importance of small business. And what we don't realize is that small businesses are under attack. 70,000 less small businesses will be generated this year versus last year, and it's almost a 20% decline over the last 10 years. And we can look, as we think about how to transform the economic trajectory of this country, and more importantly, how to put jobs back into our neighborhoods, we can look to large businesses and hope that they're going to do it. But the bottom line is, if I sell another product, we're going to move the factory to someplace that's more potentially advantageous and incentivized for us to operate large organizations. And what people don't realize is these businesses are not US, these big global businesses, they're global businesses. And even more than that as well, it pains me to see jobs move as a result. Think about the number of pension plans that are tied to these large organizations. So the reality is that we need these large organizations to be profitable and grow from a broader perspective across the country. But even if they didn't move, the growth rates of these businesses are still relatively small, and they're not going to be the ones that are going to put jobs back on the streets. The reality is it's small businesses, entrepreneurs that are going to do that. And the challenge is that we haven't really made it advantageous for them to actually succeed. So 80% of small businesses fail in the first 18 months for 2 reasons. One, they don't have access to capital. So ever since the crash, ever since subprime, capital has dried up. A small business can't even get a $20,000 loan. And if they can find somebody to loan them money, then the terms of that loan are horrendous, 30% interest rate, to the point where they could never even turn it into a profit. The other piece is we have to help small businesses understand how to truly grow, how to find the thing that they can scale, that can actually be big, giving them access to a network and access to big business thinking. And that's what we did on the show. So we took our 4 entrepreneurs, we created storefronts, which create jobs in neighborhoods. But we also said, okay, just because you're a small business doesn't mean you need to think small. So Bagel Company, which is great, you had a passion to create bagels, you slept in your car across from a shared kitchen, you woke up every single morning at 4 a.m. to roll bagels, but then all of a sudden your distribution became too big for you to do it with fresh bagels, so you learned how to freeze your bagels so they taste almost as good frozen as they do fresh. Well, guess what? The frozen bagel market happens to be a $480 million market. If we can turn you into a national bagel brand, think about the number of jobs that we can put in Cleveland. So we got them on an airplane. A, we set up the storefront, but B, and it's a beautiful, iconic storefront for Cleveland. I encourage anybody who goes to Cleveland or lives in Cleveland to go to the Gordon Square area, and you'll see just from the highway this huge Cleveland Bagel Company sign. So we encourage them. So I got them on an airplane, flew them to meet with Che, the CEO of Box, to get them a national distribution deal. And now, once that deal is finalized, they'll go from selling a truckload of bagels a month to a truckload of bagels a day. That's the type of scale. And by the way, those jobs that we create will stay right there in Cleveland. And so how do we do that across the country is kind of the passion that I've been going after in terms of how do we help entrepreneurs actually scale their businesses, grow, and potentially get access to capital. And what we did on the show was great. We set up 4 storefronts. We created 60 jobs in this small neighborhood of Gordon Square. We deployed $800,000 of capital. An additional $2 million came into that neighborhood as a result of us spotlighting it. And ultimately, we began the journey of revitalizing a neighborhood, which became something that I became really passionate about because I think I can use my big business relationships and thinking. I woke up every single day to create billion-dollar businesses. That's kind of how I'm wired, and I've been doing that for close to 2 decades. How can I bring my network of relationships and my thinking to small businesses and entrepreneurs and kind of help them transform their businesses and, more importantly, transform America?
Wow, that's powerful stuff. So did this inspire you to kind of start the Brand New events partnership?
Brand New started earlier. Brand New is a little over 2 years old. Brand New is very similar. So look, I believe entrepreneurs are the lifeblood for transforming cities and our economic growth and trajectory. I think you can look, I've been involved a lot with startups in the tech space and now in more traditional businesses as I move into the small business realm. But you see what they've done in cities like San Francisco and cities like Oakland, and so you can see it that's on a major scale. Again, access to capital in the startup markets are a lot easier in the tech space than the small business space. And hopefully we can do that on the small business space. And stay tuned because we're planning something even bigger. And hopefully you'll also be able to see a season 2 of Hustles. Brand New was created because I spent my life working inside of large organizations. And what I learned really quickly was that if you want to make it to the top of these organizations, you have to be very focused on growing your career. Most people are more deliberate in growing not just in these organizations, in any organization, in the Fortune 1000. And so what we try to do is we're a talent accelerator. And really what we try to do is help anybody in business build their professional brand and basically help accelerate their career. And what I tell people is what we forget is that more people are deliberate about the brands and services that they market or the businesses that they run than they are about their own career success. And so we ask people to take a moment out to think about how do you build your professional brand in a way that can accelerate your career or potentially your business. And when I look at the world, what we don't realize is that there are less vice presidents in Fortune 1000s than there are elite athletes in the world. So if you think it's hard to be LeBron, it's really hard to be the CEO of an organization, especially one of the big, large CPG. I was very lucky. I made it to the C-level suite of the largest snack food company in the world at a very young age, probably one of the youngest C-level executives at the time in the world. And I learned along the way what it took to get there. And so what we've created in Brand New is really the roadmap for thinking about transforming your career and building your professional brand in a way that drives thought leadership, that allows you to think and unlock how to drive innovation. We bring you together, we tear you down like Rocky and we build you back up. But what we do is we do it through world-class coaching. So I tell people, look, if you don't have an executive coach, whether you're the CEO of a small business or whether you work inside of a Fortune 1000, if you don't have an executive coach, you're fooling yourself. Even LeBron has a coach. Every single top CEO on the planet has a coach because they could tell you, oh, you know what, if you just pivot your foot 2 more inches, you'll hit more 3-pointers. They really can look at your professional landscape and help you navigate it and be a better you. We also help people with understanding strengths and how to lean in on their strengths. There was a large, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be cognizant of your weaknesses, but what I'm saying is that the reality is that to fix your weakness is nearly impossible, but to lean in on your strengths, you're going to get exponential growth. So we help people understand really kind of where their strengths are. We help people think about, how do you build billion-dollar networks? I've gotten to where I am because I've delivered and I've created networks that actually help me grow, people that I can call that can help me move projects or things forward. The other thing we do is we help you think about, how do you drive innovation? How do you introduce new technology? How do you introduce a changing landscape into your projects, your business, in a way that can accelerate and drive exponential growth? That's what I've done my entire career. Everything from introducing 3D printing, which ultimately became the platform for customized Oreos, which ultimately became a gangbuster product for Mondelez, to introducing technologies such as Snapchat, which allowed us to transform a candy brand, stuff like that. And so really think about, how do you do that in a very deliberate fashion? And so that is, and then we bring people who are experts in the field to not come and talk about the field, but to talk about how they got to where they are today. What were the challenges they learned? What were the skill sets that they realized were necessary? How did they overcome obstacles? So really, this is about a career and professional brand accelerator. And so I'm excited. This will be our first event in Miami. And so this should be a lot of fun.
Hey, Bon. Yeah. So Miami, for instance, has a lot of people here who are hustling, doing their own thing. They're basically starting their own business from scratch. A lot of folks here not from the city. They all from all over the world, from South America. So how do you think that kind of impact here, people who kind of don't have a normal corporate job sometimes, or trying to get by in the city? What can they take away from this event when they come and experience all the great
Miami. So again, the trajectory of Brand New started off with people in Fortune 1000s, and then we realized that what we were teaching was really not how to build your personal brand, but how to build a professional brand. And we realized that translates into any type of entrepreneur, anybody inside of a large organization. And that intermingling is great networking, by the way, because those are what helps small businesses grow, meaning people inside of large organizations getting bigger deals. But really, how do you build your professional brand? How do you create thought leadership? How do you create the networks that are necessary? How do you make sure that you get visibility for yourself? And, for example, look, I have been speaking on stages for the last 10 years. People say, wow, you must love it. Not going to lie, I love it. More than anything on the planet, I love it. But I love it for 2 reasons. One, because I just love sharing my knowledge with people and providing kind of the learnings that I've had. And quite frankly, I love putting on a show. So I will tell you, if you come to Brand New, you're going to see an exciting show, because I just like to perform for people. But more than that is, what I learned really early on is that you can go to all the networking events that you want. You can go to all the events that you want and try to network. That is so difficult. So what I teach people is power networking. The reason why I started speaking on panels and then ultimately doing keynotes was because when I got off stage, people came up and talked to me. Everybody in the audience knew who I was. And so instead of me having to try to run around and meet people and scrounge to meet people, instead I created a thought leadership position, which allowed me to then have people come to me, to attract interest to me, versus me having to fight in a dog and tooth and nail, let me buy you a drink or try to meet you at the bar kind of way. So I basically do high throughput networking, and we teach people that inside of Brand New. More importantly, what we teach people is, how do you become a good speaker? Everybody thinks that, and not just a good speaker, but a good presenter on panels, and if that's what you choose to do. First of all, let me step back. What we teach people is how to create thought leadership platforms. So if you actually take a moment and go and look at what I've done, I have had a platform, and I've been very deliberate. Look, I came from working in the PR industry. Very early on, I watched one of the organizations that I work for take a guy who was a senior director, from senior director to CEO, basically by managing his internal and external communications. Basically, what we've formulated into is building your professional brand. And it starts with creating platforms that are ownable. So if you look at my most recent platforms, it's from unicorns to dragons. And it's really talking about how can small businesses how can large organizations accelerate the growth of small businesses? How can large organizations take small ideas and accelerate them across their scale to create faster growing billion-dollar businesses? And that's my platform. If you go back, I was doing Hackonomy. If you go before that, I was doing digital fitness. If you go before that, I was doing mobile storytelling. If you go before, and so I've created platforms. And what that allows me to do is to create a series of talking points, which I'm consistent with, which now I know how to deliver in a very consistent and compelling way. I also have learned how to align the activities that I do into my platform. So being very deliberate about how I build my thought leadership platform. The other thing is, if you do want to be a keynote speaker, if you do want to be able to deliver your message to tons of crowds, I will give you the secret. You will learn them firsthand at Brand New, but I'll give you a little bit of insight. Deliver the same presentation over and 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 over again. I remember my very first big keynote at South by Southwest. I had studied really, really hard, delivered it. It was spectacular. It was amazing. Then 2 weeks later, I flew out to San Francisco, and I was supposed to give a presentation. A friend of mine who happened to be in the audience at South by was there. He used to be a manager of artists. He said, "What are you going to present?" I said, "Well, I created a whole new presentation and that I think is tailored to the crowd." He said, "Are you crazy? Do you think that you delivered an A+ presentation at South by. Do you believe that, and look at how much preparation it took. Do you believe that this presentation that you're ready to present now will be an A+? If not, why would you deliver it? Deliver the A+. People come to hear the hits." And I said, "Well, I'm so worried that everybody in the crowd is going to have already heard it." He said, "Are you not? You're fooling yourself. You're in your own head. You're not that important, Bonin. Not less than maybe 4% of people in the audience. But more important, what people take away is the passion, not just the message, but the passion." And so when you present the same thing over and over, now look, you have to change your platform on a consistent level, maybe every 6 months, every 12 months, and we talk about that and we teach that. But when you deliver the same message over and over again, what it does is everybody who's afraid or nervous to speak in front of a room, it removes all of that, because you no longer have to think about the words. You no longer have to search for what you're going to say next. You know the stuff cold. And so you are able to actually perform for the crowd and deliver passion to the topic that you're talking about. And people remember that. And that's what makes great speakers. It's not just the content, but it's the quality of the delivery. And that's what we teach. And we teach how to remove that intrepidation and really how to become a thought leader. There you have it.
I'm in. Teach me. Teach me it all.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm really fascinated by the fact that you've embraced in texting so much. I mean, that's how we met. I mean, I texted you randomly and you're like, "Dope, let's talk." I mean, how flooded are you with that, and what gets you excited, like, for the future of technology, like people embracing, texting as basically their new form of talking?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that I've always been a proponent of. I've always been a proponent of moving to where the consumer goes. At the end of the day, what slows most businesses down is that they forget that the consumer is more malleable today in terms of where they spend their attention than they've ever been. And if you do not have an agile approach, whether you're a small business or a large business, an agile approach to being able to move your communication to where the consumers are, then you're going to fail. Or even worse than failing, you're not going to take advantage of that growth trajectory. And so that's what we try to teach in Brand New as well, is how do you identify consumer trends fast enough to move your communication and business there? I'll tell you somebody who does this great. I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary, early adopter, early to YouTube, early to Twitter, early to Snapchat. And what's great about that is that it allows him to build audiences very early on and very quick and establish himself in platforms as they're growing versus having to try to come in over the top. And that's ultimately the ability to know where consumers are shifting. And so when I look at the world, messaging has overtaken social media, but yet very few brands, very few businesses, very few entrepreneurs are using messaging in any strategy. If you want to see the future, and actually I'm flying out to China tomorrow night to go interview, to go do a documentary on WeChat. If you want to see the future, go look at WeChat. Every single thing happens in messaging. Messaging is the future platform. And that's where, not even the future, messaging is the platform now. Every single relationship that you care about, every single business deal that you really close, you're doing it over messaging. The loved ones in your life, you're connecting with them over messaging. Over 4 billion people are using messaging. That's where consumer attention is. That's where businesses have to go. And so I wrote a book called Txt Me. earlier, well, I actually moved to China to actually write the book because it's an interview book. So the whole idea was to write a book on the freakonomics of the mobile generation. And we look at the untalked about and undiscussed impact that mobile's had on every single aspect of life, from dating to relationships to parenting, so on and so forth. And so what I wanted to do was, I wanted to really understand. So I did 120 interviews with everybody from the owner of the Warriors and the Dodgers to the CEO of Twitter to Chopra and everybody in between. And I wanted to understand how it's impacting life. And as I began to realize learning how it's impacting life, I decided, originally the book was called Digital, and then we changed it to Text Me 646-759-1837. For all you listeners, feel free to text me. You can text me now. I'll answer questions over text, but it's 646-759-1837. But as I began to think about it, I realized that asking 120 people wasn't enough. I wanted to have the largest social experiment with consumers in direct conversation that's ever been done. And so we changed the name to Text Me, the 646-759-1837. The publisher actually didn't love that, so I actually bought the rights back, published it with a company called Bambella. If you ever want to publish a book, Bambella is a great company to work with. They allowed me to do what I wanted to do. Best decision I've ever made. I've texted with over 12,000 people. Not only have I learned, and I talk a lot about, we ask people a simple question like, so look, at the end of the day, relationships have been dramatically transformed. Think about how many relationships break up just because of found messages. But think about now, that's such a huge mode of communication. I felt like I knew my fiance's Bitmoji almost as much as I knew, her face, because that's literally, and so it's this crazy, weird phenomenon. But we asked people a simple question around relationships when I launched the book at South by Southwest, which was, what's the last thing you look at before you go to sleep, your partner or your cell phone? And 80% of people said myself. One guy was so pissed, he texted back. He was like, no, I can't believe that I look at my cell phone before, and now I changed, and now I make it a point to look at my partner before I go to sleep. I said, you're welcome, and I charge for your dating advice. Just text back yes, and I'll auto bill you. So, but what I began to realize was, as I was looking for a platform to text with people, there was very little in the space. There was literally very little technology. There was no Buddy Media. There was actually a platform. I just did an interview with Ryan Leslie, Superphone, that I'm actually an investor in. And at the time, his technology was new and couldn't handle kind of my use case. Then I moved over to a company called Pipestream, and I launched a thing at Cannes. Again, I've made an investment in Pipestream. I would go look at Pipestream if you want to reinvent customer service. And that technology has pivoted away from kind of one-to-one engagement. But I began to, and now an investment in a company called Snaps, which does it for brands and small businesses. As I began to look at the space, I realized that this space was growing faster than social media grew, and yet the technology landscape was so nascent. And so I said to myself, you know what, it's now or never. And so I've jumped in and I've been investing in messaging technologies. We've created a consulting group that can help companies think about how small business owners, entrepreneurs, all the way to large organizations, as you go through digital transformation, as you try to move to where the consumer is at, we can provide kind of thought leadership and consulting there if people ask. But it's been great because what I've been able to do is text with thousands of people, ask them questions about how the phones changed their life, get some societal point of view. I think I'm probably now one of the foremost experts on how message tech is actually changing culture, which is crazy. And even more than that is, and I talk about it, I have a Fast Company article that just came out in this month's Fast Company. If you grab it on the newsstand, you'll see me, man with a message. And even more, I've been able to talk to entrepreneurs and people trying to change their career and been able to have real personal relationship conversations. Now, it's hard at scale. I'm not going to lie. I spend a lot of my time. But I prefer messaging now more than I prefer email. Email to me is a dead – and by the way, not just me, an entire generation doesn't even know what email is, dude. Like, email is not a thing. 7 of the top 10 downloaded apps this year are messaging apps. 7 of the top 10 downloaded apps in the world. This is where consumers are at. And so I feel that I've, really jumped into the space from an investment standpoint, but even more so from an understanding how consumers want to be talked to in these platforms, how it's changing the way consumers are thinking, and how businesses can drive and create value and growth from it.
Yes. So what do you think everyone's wrong? Like, what's driving you crazy?
Chatbots. The whole world talking about chatbot. I believe that there is a place for chatbots. And by the way, a number of companies that I've invested in are chatbot companies. But I think that what we fail to realize is how expansive this space really is. So the reality is, everything that exists for social will exist inside of messaging. So there's a small company which I'm trying to work with that they basically have gone to 12 million, it's not small, they're exploding, gone to 12 million users, and all they do is they send you video clips from your favorite basketball players into your messaging. So content companies will be reinvented, magazines will be created, newsletters like Thrillist will end up on messaging, publishing and messaging will be huge. The monetization of that channel, we haven't even figured out. Think about all the fintech, my ability to text back yes and get auto billed. The reason why I think chatbots is diverting the industry is that it's the shiny object, but there's no way you're going to tell me that the entire world will be communicated and engaged with just via chatbot. That's not the only way that this game is going to happen. So I think that there's an entire space. Maybe chatbots will represent 30% of the market, but I think there's another 70% of the market that hasn't even been thought about. This is so new for businesses to engage with it. People have been doing messaging for millennia. No. And now we're seeing it even more, and especially when you look internationally, but services and utilities and media and none of that stuff, all the back end technology that has to connect to CRM systems, all of that's the fintech, identification, authentication, all this stuff is coming down the pipeline. And I think that there's a world where people aren't really seeing that. And so that's my biggest frustration.
I really see that, and I definitely agree with that as well. So we have time for one more question with you. Where do you see the future of advertising in general in the next 20 years? Because this is I think we're in flux, man. It's crazy. People's attention is so divided. I can't even get my wife to talk to me sometimes. I'm like, get off your phone, put it down, just talk to me. Where are we going?
20 years is really crazy, dude.
Let's do 5.
No, I'm going to tackle 20 since you asked.
All right.
Look, I think VR will be a thing. I think messaging will probably have lent into a new platform. I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but it'll be mobile centric. I definitely think that VR is going to have morphed into glass. I think that this is really, for me, I think when I launched media monetization in my past life, that was to say brands will no longer be able to buy attention at scale. They will have to create reasons for consumers to actually potentially pay for their content, or advertisers to potentially pay to be a joint part of bringing that content to life. So they're actually going to have to create content where consumers are paying with their attention. And I think that is a different ballgame. They're really, truly, I know we've been talking about this for almost a decade, brands as publishers, but the reality is most brands still just have a lot of money to plaster stuff. And that's not, to me, being a publisher. A real publisher is somebody who gets paid for the content that they create. And so that's why we tried to pivot the media spend to see if we could make the media spend actually make money back. And so I think that is, and I also think, it's very cliche and I hate to say it, but experiences and utility is going to be a huge part. Look, we forget that brands operate in culture. We talk about, this company's a brand marketer, this company's a brand. It's not the case. Look, the previous company I worked at had animal crackers. Why wasn't there Animal Crackers the movie? Why wasn't there Animal Crackers the stuffed animal? Why wasn't there Animal Crackers the amusement park? Why wasn't there Animal Cracker experiences that people could participate in? You want to know who does this game really well? Disney. Disney does this game really well. They are a true brand creator. They truly create brands that move culture, are a part of culture, that people will actually pay to engage with. That's transformational marketing to me. Right now, all we're seeing is a bunch of guys that, men and women, that have a lot of brand dollars to try to plaster ads on places. And I just don't think that wins in the long run.
I think you're right, man. I really do. All right, man. Well, I'll let you run. I know you're busy, man, going to China tomorrow. So everyone should go pick up his book. Come see him at Brand New on the 12th. Text him. He'll talk to you and hang out, give you advice, whatever you want to talk about. And we'll see you here in a couple of weeks, Bonin.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, so feel free to text me, 646-759-1837. Every single one of you, I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time to spend with me. And I'd love to see you at Brand New on the 12th. Thank you so much, Chris, and have a great day.
Later, Bonin. Thanks.
Bye.